all literacy and phonics consultants. Anne's based in Scotland, Abby's in England, and I'm in Wales. So that's a really lovely bit of teamwork going on. And as Abby said, I'm going to sort of lead the way today. And some of you might find this very challenging, but that's good, because if the teaching profession can't talk about things and thrash things out and reflect on them, then who can? Now, some of you might be joining today, and in your school, you might already be doing this form of beginning writing, where you're teaching separate letter shapes, but you're adding a little lead-in join. And this is what's really worrying us at the moment, because this is a bad idea, but it's well-intentioned. And so we need to thrash this out today and make you reflect. Now, I've been touching upon handwriting for many years in its own right, and also as part of phonics provision. And so I've also got my own experience of inheriting children from reception who can orally segment and spell, but didn't go on to do very much writing. And I realized it was that they had poor letter formation. They did not have automatic, confident, fluent letter formation. So teaching handwriting is really an issue to match the spelling and things that we are doing as well. Now, let's look at the rationale, first of all, of why this is a spreading idea. And when I've done proper handwriting training, it's not something you can do in an hour. And the format of it is, for me, is that we look at the pros and cons of a different approach to teaching handwriting, because some of the rationale is very opposing, and in a way it's all valid to have those points of view. So this is not a put down of different points of view. It's a discussion to look at what those points of view are. But unfortunately, because this is a short webinar, you don't get the chance to say anything back to me because I've got so much to cover, but you can put it in the chat. From today, if this means something to you, if it resonates with you, I would like you to consider taking it back to your schools. And if you are a school already doing the single letters with the lead-in joins, I'm hoping you will generate a conversation back in school. If you are a school where in the process of being asked to do that, and you have a lot of sympathy with what I say today, I hope you will go back fearlessly to challenge it based on some of the pointers that I'm going to make today. Here are some reasons why people are doing this. Number one, it's become a trend. And as I said on Twitter, or is it a fad? Either way, it's spreading like wildfire. And one of my friends and colleagues who works in Wales tells me that it's spreading in Wales. I'm not familiar going into many schools in Wales. I've got more familiarity with schools in England, but I do Twitter and I see a lot of this going on. And if you go on YouTube, you see it. If you go on phonics videos, you see it. This is huge. And that's why I think we need to do something about it, to have these discussions. So are you doing it because it's become a thing? Next, we do it because we find children in Key Stage 2 or primary 1, 2, 3 and 4 or whatever it is are not good at joint handwriting. So we're going to start earlier. We're going to start as we mean to carry on. Okay, another perspective on that. Are they not good at teaching, at doing joint handwriting in your junior age children or even secondary aged because you haven't taught it well enough? Is it that some of the children can do it well through whatever method you have used to teach joint handwriting and others aren't? Because very often on Twitter, when people flag up some writing from several children in the same class, you will look at some and say, gosh, that's really quite solid handwriting. And you'll look at some others and think, what's going on there? Why are they still in print? or quasi-joining? Why is there no consistency? And in the reading debate that the three of us are involved in heavily all of the time, one of the issues is not challenging the teaching well enough. We are always looking for explanations beyond the teaching. Is it a within child difficulty? Is it a socio-economic issue? What is it? Is it dyspraxia? There's always something else, but not our teaching. Now, when I go on this evening, I will be challenging the teaching. I want you to bear in mind, it's never, ever personal. And as I said in the last webinar, I want you to bear in mind my age. I have been in this profession for decades. Therefore, I have a vast experience, including going on to be a program author and teacher training and doing lesson modeling and going into schools and looking at what's going on. That means I am entitled to speak with a certain natural authority and to be challenging at what's going on, because what I see going on is not really good enough. But very often it's not the actual teacher's fault because they haven't been well trained or well guided. So when I appear to be very critical, it's not just at school level. It can be at advisory level, at DFE level, at Ofsted level. So believe you me, don't ever take me personally because I'm just a bit of a critic. Tonight as well, I am going to call upon anecdote. Occasionally I use anecdote, but people who overdo the anecdotes can get very boring because it becomes about them and not about getting on with what you need to say. But I do want to give some anecdotes because I want to explain where I'm coming from and part of what makes me so confident in what I say. So I'm going to go back to the days when I was a young mum in the process of having 4 children. So by having 4 children, it suited me really well not to have full-time teaching, but to do part-time and supply teaching. I did a combination. What this was amounted to a vast training experience. It meant that where I lived at the time, I was going into a huge number of those local schools. I was already questioning what was going on with regard to teaching reading and writing and handwriting. And a lot of my experience was with junior age children. So I was inheriting children that had gone through other people's hands. Now, when I was first a teacher, I was in a middle school teaching a year 6-7 class. And at that time, if children came to me unable to read, I honestly believed they couldn't read because they couldn't read. They were not teachable because they'd gone through all of those years at school. I now know this is nonsense because if I knew then what I now know, I could have taught those children to read and write. That's how important it is for me to speak up now to try to really get people reflecting and becoming the best possible teachers they can be. So I started to get children who were not succeeding, but they were perfectly bright. They were completely interested in whatever theme I was teaching. And their behavior changed when I asked them to write something or read something. These were children who changed because I was asking them to do something they couldn't do. Now, going around on supply, it was extremely common to find a child in every class who was special needs and who had a Velcro teaching assistant, i.e. the child was sitting at one side of the class with a teaching assistant there, not always a lady, sometimes it could be a man as well, it's not all ladies there. Sometimes the children were taken out, and as the main teacher, I felt disconnected from that child because one thing we often do by error is disconnect the teacher from the children with the most difficulties, and we hand them over to our teaching assistants, sometimes with not enough support for that teaching assistant. Now, this is an extremely uncomfortable position for those children. And if we're not careful, whatever their stage they're at, they stay at that stage forever, for year after year after year. I'm into drawing and I'm into handwriting, and I believe that we can actively teach these things. I would go up to these children and look at what they were writing and what they were doing. And invariably, it was very large, scruffy, badly folded, kind of coerced by the teaching assistant, and not much of it. And I thought, oh dear, let me help this child. Now, remember, those of you who know me well already, one of my most favorite expressions is, let me help you with that, because we need to step in again and again and again and help the children with that. So this is how I learned that children are stuck where they are, and I hope this gives you goosebumps, when they can do far better. So I would go up to the child and in an exercise book with lines on and say, right, watch me really carefully. I'm going to help you with that. Watch how I write this little sentence. Then I would like to see if you can copy it and try and make it as close as possible to the way I've written it, so that I can hardly tell the difference of whether I've written it or whether you've written it. So with the child watching, pencil, correct grip, tripod grip, lines, I would write a simple sentence, perhaps chatting to the child along the way. In school, after school, I did that. And in every single case, that child, usually a boy, would write that simple sentence, and you could hardly tell the difference between my writing and that child's writing. Now, if that doesn't make you think, what will? And then we'd follow through. The teaching assistant would be amazed because the child hadn't done that before, but who'd just stepped in to say, right, try and do it like this, and really modeled for that child. Now, let's take that further. What then happens? Not only is the teaching assistant surprised, who else is surprised? The child. And then look at what comes after that. Trot off to the head teacher. Oh my goodness, look what Johnny's just done. Wow, is it? Oh my goodness, have a head teacher's sticky badge or whatever it was. And I kid you not, sometimes those head teachers would offer me a job after that, because, you know, who wouldn't want someone like me in there that could just make a difference like that? Now, of course, that job was not done, because I would need to look at the child's letter formation of the whole alphabet, capital and lowercase, and build on where I am with that child. But that's why that anecdote is so important, because you are all teaching as hard as you can every single day, and you all get massive pressures placed on you. You have got parasitic communities earning huge salaries on the back of what you're doing with these little pickly children in your class. It's all wrong. So I want to, with Anne, with Abby, we want to start our own community of how well we can do this. So let's go back to this business with leading shapes. Another bit of rationale is from the dyslexic advisory community. Oh, dyslexic children get their left and their right muddled up, they write things backwards. But if you start every letter shape on the line, they're always heading off in the same direction, and that's going to help those dyslexic children. Nonsense. Again, this is about taking children at 4, 5, 6 years of age, and what if they have dyslexic tendencies, meaning a tendency to muddlement, and you start teaching them letter shapes that are far more complicated than they need to be, and you're including a lead-in join as if it is part of the letter shape. And then when they go to do their phonics program and read their reading books, all the fonts don't have lead-in joins. Oh, but hang on a minute, We've now got a whole industry of people who've made you your bits and pieces for your phonics provision with the letter shapes, with the lead-in joins, further exacerbating this issue of what should we teach our little children. And should we make our 4, 5 and 6-year-olds do these more complicated letter shapes because the older children aren't managing to handwrite well because you're not teaching them well enough? So let's pass the buck to the little children. This is about reflecting from everyone's perspective and arguing with that rationale and thinking which is the most important. Now, logic says we should be teaching our 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds the simplest letter shape we can. They have to learn 26 letter shapes lowercase. They have to learn capital letters. They have to be taught and learn the most complex alphabetic code in the world, which has got hundreds of letter sound correspondences, and you throw a little bit of extra into the mix. Now, I've asked Anne to support me with this because she's such a super administrator. I'm so grateful for the help of Abby and Anne. And Abby and Anne has, just before this live webinar, we're trying to get rid of smoke, done a little PowerPoint for me to share some things with you. So we're going to start off at slide 1, if Anne can sort that out. Right, slide 1. Now, these are all very hot off the press from Twitter. Now, this includes the, I don't know, what's this, something on wood, written on wood. And I'm not sure who that's written by. It could be written by a teacher, or it could be written by children to make up the wonderful word iridescent. And this is part of the rich vocabulary push. Now, let's study all of those letter shapes. Look at the bit that you might consider the lead-in join. What do we notice? Consistency. Where does it start? If we had an imaginary line that those letters were sitting on, where would that be? Let's look at relative size. Maybe these were all written by an actual child, but nevertheless, this is going to be a main display in this school. Now put yourselves in the shoes of the child. What does that teach you about lowercase letter formation? Does that look like good quality? Now let's look at the other one. Now, this was a celebration of the children in reception coming back and just doing some free writing. By the way, I want to say now, I want to send my warmest wishes to all of you coping with this terrible pandemic and what you're doing in schools. I do think you are remarkable. Now, if we look at this child's writing, or these children, I don't know who it's for, let's look at them. Let's look at what might be an F, but looks like a complicated S. You can see someone's doing phonics because we've got an N and a G together. We've got a letter, not sure whether it's a joined I or not. We've got a letter P, certainly not the correct formation. The letters M's a bit dodgy. So as you can see, children that we are expecting to do a digraph such as NG together and can actually manage that are not really managing just even simple print with other letter shapes. So may we conclude this child is all a bit confused. Right, let's go on to the next one, please, Anne. Now, the next one is where a school is using one of these software programs with letter formation. Let's study it. You could say it's good sizing because it's, you know, lowercase is all pretty much the same size. But if we went through it, each word, we've got a little bit of uncertainty going from the M to the E, from the P to the E. Not sure what happens after the E going to the O for people. Not sure after the P's not really joining the L. So when you go through letter by letter, it's really not clear, no matter how much the overall impression is very neat. Look at the U going to the S. Maybe people don't join the S. What about the S going to the E? Let's look in perfume, the E going to the R. What happens there? R to the F. Really not sure what's going on there. Here is the message that when you start to dig deep, this is not great, no matter how neat it looks. This is not a good model for children. Let's go to the next one, please, Anne. Now, this was flagged up today, and I was pleased to see this seemed to be on paper and not on mini whiteboards, because I am a real critic of phonics and mini whiteboard work, as some of you know. It's all right occasionally for quick fire, give them a sound or give them a word to spell, but generally speaking, it certainly doesn't help. Letter formation. Now, these are very young children. I think they are reception children. So quite frankly, that's really very good phonics going on, not got a problem with that. However, when you start going past the fact that it's impressive for reception children, you start going letter to letter, it's not nearly what you think it is. So if you go, for example, to top right, where a child's writing a fox in the something, that's quite an impressive F, but F going to the O, no resemblance. O going to the X, no relationship there. All the letters going with a top join, which will be letter O, letter R, letter V, letter W, letter X. They're not rationalized. And so when you start to dig deep, are these joins really helping the children? Or is some teacher at some point, when they get to the joining stage, going to have some difficulty with rationalizing how we actually join them? Could these lead-in joins be impressive when children of this age start to get the letter formation, but when it comes to the joining point, it's not that easy? Now, I will say this. We can have schools doing this from the start that can point to their older children and say, but look at our outcome. And it may be excellent outcome. I am not saying for 1 minute that you don't later get an excellent outcome of all your children joining. But what I am saying is this: should you be complicating letter shapes for your 4 to 6 year olds so that the older children later end up with nice fully joined handwriting? Are you passing the buck to your younger children because you think you haven't cracked it later on? So time permitting, I'll be talking later about how it's very easy to crack handwriting when you start with older children who have got their print really secure. So superficially, yes, this is great. And in some ways, they've definitely been taught writing on the line, which I think is excellent. So a lot of the letters are okay on the writing line. But I don't think this is an example of a reason of why to start the children with that letter formation. Then we're going to go on to the next one, please, Anne. Right, this is blowing my mind. If I was a parent and I had a child started writing on my dining room table, I would be furious. Why? Why do we need to do corny things with handwriting? Why is it acceptable? Unless perhaps you say they ran out of paper this day. This is corny, writing on tabletops and things like that. This is a fad. This is a trend. This is totally unnecessary. It is not fit for purpose. And it's no more fun. You know, if you've got a good relationship with your children and they're listening attentively to what you're saying to them and they're doing their work in their own books, you can still make it fun and enjoyable and engaging. So first thing is, really, you have to get them to write on tables? I don't think so. The next thing is, when you look at this child's writing, again, what you have got is a real mishmash of some words joined and some not. This child has no consistency. That might not matter. And when I get later into different styles of handwriting, I am going to suggest it's absolutely okay to have several styles of handwriting and to use them when it is fit for purpose. So I'm one of these people that's a total hypocrite. When I write my own notes, I don't use my teaching style, and they're quite untidy. Whereas some of you will write beautiful teaching notes at the same time as having beautiful handwriting. But I'm just showing you that as teachers, we really need to think, do we need to dress up our reading and our writing? Vocabulary is exciting. Learning new things is exciting. Literature is exciting. So please try to be not corny for the sake of it. Right, the next one was flagged up by a lady who is absolutely passionate about the teaching of handwriting. Her lady is Nikki Parr. She is on Twitter, so do follow her. She gave a really good talk the other day with Jeff Vaughan's 3-day international conference. And what was so special about her talk was anecdotes and giving before examples and after examples. And what she brought to the table was that we have issues with adults with holding implements and their handwriting as well. This isn't just about children, but it's very much wrapped up with self-esteem and perception of oneself. So this is an example of what happens when you teach children all of these separate letters and they get older. Look at it. Loads of these letters are not joining up. They're not intellectualizing them. Now and again, there are some random joins, but you know, look, we've got letter R is a common letter in our spelling system, and it's never rationalized to the letter E. We've got W that ends with a top join, not rationalized with E. So if you've got lots of letters in your handwriting style, which you would argue they don't need to join anyway, you know, you are really saying, well, why join? Because are you just ending up with a style which is just quasi-joined anyway? This is a mishmash. And, you know, in the UK, we need to do better than this. So now I'm going to go to the next example, which is the last example for here. This was a surprise that I had, a school that I visited, and it was, surprise, Debbie, we're teaching your handwriting style. Here's a lovely example. And this was on display. And I was very, very touched. Now, if you look, you'll see that all of the letters are joined. So there's no inconsistency about joining or not joining. There's complete rationale and confidence joining the letters that end in a top join to the next letters. It's relatively well-sized, descenders, and so on. And I would suggest that there's almost an element of flair there. So I'm really quite pleased to sort of flag this up as this is this child's normal handwriting now, even if it's just for when she's going to put something on display. Now, just to be a little bit challenging, look at the teacher's handwriting. So which do you think is the best? You know, so I'm going to go on to say that actually, again, looking at Twitter, and this is something I see all of the time, that when teachers mark children's work, and even when they scribe for an infant child to interpret what that child said or give feedback, it is rarely, if ever, in the school handwriting written well. So that's another thing that we need to think about. If you yourself can't write well with your marking, you cannot expect your children to write well or to criticize them. If you are doing too much marking and you're finding it's too slow to do the school handwriting, then you need to make your marking a lot simpler. So when I was in teaching, because I don't teach now other than I model lessons, when I was in teaching, it was ludicrous the amount that they were marking complicated, to the learning intention, to this, to that, to the other, pretty much horrendous expectation of marking, but not for spelling. And I often got told, we're not marking for spelling. And I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure you should be teaching and supporting for spelling as a continuum. So that becomes part of teacher training as well. Right, thank you very much to Anne. That's absolutely excellent. So the dyslexic argument does not hold water. They're thinking this improves children's handwriting in the long run. They may as well start as they mean to carry on. Does not hold water. Children have a big enough job to do all of the phonics and letter formation anyway. So really, let's stick to plain, simple fonts. They already have to read different fonts in terms of that's the modern world we live in. Different stories will have different fonts, different reading books will have different fonts. And we need to teach children about different fonts. But we, the teachers, do not need to add another font that is more complicated than it needs to be. So from now on in, you'll never be the same. You will start to look at your own handwriting, other teachers' handwriting, and children's handwriting very differently. It's been exacerbated by organisations like Twinkle, giving you thousands of handwriting resources, sometimes in a plain font, sometimes in that font with the leaders. No, don't go there. If you have spent an inordinate amount of time equipping your school, especially if you're a letters and sounds school, therefore you've got no resources, therefore you've had to bring lots together to create a program yourself. If that includes lots of Twinkle type resources, and you do decide I'm making a lot of sense tonight, then scrap them. Change. If you agree with what I say, change. The other thing that's wrong with a lot of ready-made resources, for infants in particular, is this habit of doing the font in like a hollow letter. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Because I've still got sulfur and God knows what else swanning around our house. So they've got the hollow font, and then the rest of the space of the resource are patterns and colours and flowers, not fit for purpose. The other day, Boris Johnson was on national TV and he was visiting a school. And I don't know what age range this class was for, but there was a display for adjectives, there was a display for prepositions, and then they had a smattering of digraphs, in other words, phonics, in hollow letters on iced buns. WTF! You know, this is not fit for purpose. And then they had hot air balloons. I couldn't quite see what was dangling on the hot air balloons. No, you do not need to dress up your resources with these ridiculous ideas of trains, planes, buns, and things like that. They need to be the most fit for purpose, straightforward, good models that you can make them. So when I go into classrooms, they are incredibly vocabulary rich, but they can be an Aladdin's cave of wallpaper. So when it comes to teaching the foundations of literacy, I am urging you all to reflect strongly on what you do. Now, just recently, I've been trying to talk to a school about their provision for children for the handwriting and for the phonics. And I was asked about, well, would the Department for Education in Ofsted accept your work, Debbie? I wasn't promoting my work. I wasn't away but I was supporting a parent. And I'm saying, hang on a minute, you are sending home Twinkle, and you are sending home Spelling Shed, and you are sending home using Phonics Play to do pick and mix for your letters and sounds program. Hello, they're not DFE validated. So let's get a grip and get the best teaching that we possibly can for our children. Right, now, before I go on, what's the time like? Have I run out of time? No, not quite. I'll go on to the teaching of joint handwriting quickly, but there's quite a lot of chat. Abby, do you want to take off your mic and tell me, is there anything going on about what's going on so far?
Mostly it's me actually waffling on going, oh gosh, I actually was that teacher that had hot air balloons and butterflies dangling from my ceiling once. And then I learned better. We have got a really good question actually from Pamela, and she's asking about what's the best plan, the best way forward with her P6 children whose handwriting is almost illegible. Like, where does she start with moving forwards now with these children, getting them sorted out? Literally, what to do?
That's what I'm going to do now. Right, a bit of anecdote again. When I was doing my 4 children supply part-time, I would also do tutoring, and very often children would come to me with parents who were really concerned their children were bright and they were not doing well in foundational literacy. And the first thing I used to assess was, could they write out the alphabet in alphabetical order? Could they write capital letters and lowercase letters? Now, anyone who is interested in this topic, you must all be interested in this topic, go and do a baseline. Do that baseline with all of your children if you've got a handwriting issue in your school. Now, you have got a handwriting issue if in your top classes you've got some children still not writing well, or some still not joining when you've taught them. Something's going wrong and you need to know. Now, it's the professional thing to do, whatever you teach, to do a baseline. And with this COVID situation, never more so than now. So basically ask your children, unaided, to write out the alphabet in order, capital letters and lowercase. Then look at it, and that's your starting point. So find out who can't even do alphabetical order. Find out who really is not getting certain letter shapes. Is there a pattern across the class? If there's a general pattern, it might well be, say, right, we're going to start with letter so-and-so as a whole class approach. If you've got outliers, children who are sticking out as can't do this letter formation, can't do that letter formation, in their exercise book with handwriting lines, not great big wide lines, because they'll just write big, or they'll write like their tram lines, you know, ordinary size. Go for ordinary size letter shapes. If you as an individual write very small, when you're teaching, make it bigger. If you write very big, when you're teaching, make it smaller. Make it what might be a reasonable size, which is what I try to do with my handwriting practice books that some of you might know about, which Anne can flag up or Abby can flag up later or whatever. If you go to phonics-international.com, there's a button called news-gossip, and that will lead you to these webinars and any papers and things that come as a consequence of these webinars. So you can go there. When you've done that, you need to think, where do I need to go with this? Now, in that first anecdote I told you about with children in reception who came to me, I had a year 1, year 2 class. Their handwriting was such a mess, I decided to teach them fully joined writing with the leading joins. And with my method, it was hugely successful. So I learned my method with a year 1, year 2 class. And all of the children did it. And even year 1s, after 1 term, could write a whole full side of fully joined handwriting beautifully. But just because they could, I don't advocate it. Don't start until year 2 or P3. Anne, have I got that right? P3. Year 2s, P3s. I have to work that out. Teach infants handwriting, print well, and capital letter formation. Make sure with your capital letter formation that as a staff, you do your capital letters the same way. So of those letter shapes, like T and I and J, that have the cross top, half of you watching now will start on the left and go across for the top, find the middle and go down. The other half of you will go down first and then do the cross top. Right, for children, it is easier to do the cross top from left to right, put your pencil on the middle point-ish and go down, rather than do the downstroke first and then have to go to mid-air. You've got no guide to go across horizontally to happen to cross your top point that is really challenging. So as a staff, you need to be the same as one another. And also as a staff, you need to make sure that however you hold your pencil or pen, that you are modeling the tripod grip, which is to grip at the bottom of this painted part with, I call it frog legs for little children. So my little beanbag froggy, I put across here like this. His back legs are like my pinchy legs. Oh, I'm not doing this very well. I'm trying to work to the camera. Pencil across the frog's back, pinch at the bottom of the painted bit, and he sits on the log. Now, if you use fat pencils for little children, they cannot grip well. They will want to go down the cone to get a grip. And any children who go down the cone will obscure their writing. And then what's happening en masse is that even right-handed children are turning their wrists round and writing above their words rather than below their words. Now, it doesn't matter whether children are right-handers or left-handers. Teach them to hold their implement and write under to slant their paper to be comfortable. And it's the same with left-handers there, slant to be comfortable. If you're a left-hander and in a lifetime you've learned to write like this, no, that's not good enough. Left-handers can write perfectly comfortable beneath their letters, and you need to be mindful to discharge your duty. So slant the paper that way and write under, and use a pencil. Don't think about smudgy pens. Don't worry about that. And you can get pens that don't smudge nowadays, so that is not an excuse. If you are an infant teacher or in special needs support, dyslexic tendency children have muddlement. What I found was, if my dyslexic children were sitting facing boards on the right, they might start writing on their page right to left and back to front. So make sure you seat your children facing forwards, facing the left of the board, so they have that in their face to copy anything like that, or better still, have your content on paper in front of them. Don't expect children to copy from the board. It's very, very challenging. That's another reason why my phonics programs are brilliant, because children get their own paper-based work. Now, right, how to teach handwriting. So you need to do your review and create your baseline and date when that baseline was taken, and examine what letter formation you need to teach. Look at your poster support. Do you have tabletop alphabets? Do you have a poster of the alphabet? Or have you got the alphabet dancing on string, on pegs, flowery backgrounds? Then you need to go to phonics.international.com, and in Unit 1, because everybody can register for free nowadays, so there's no excuse not to look at it and see what it offers. But in the Unit 1 material near the bottom of the web page, there is a giant printable alphabet poster with letter formation, and there is a tabletop one. Now, look at those. Even if they're just examples of what you need to support your children. Do not do the alphabet arc rubbish, which is to put the alphabet for dyslexic children in an arc, which if you go on Google, there are millions of them. What? We are showing our little children and our dyslexic children the letter shapes at oblique angles? No. In rows, on writing lines, properly positioned, and think from the shoes of a child with regard to these fit for purpose resources. We need a massive sort out of resources themselves. Now, if you have got Year 2 or P3, we can start to teach them fully joined handwriting. And some of you might have already found that I've got a free handwriting practice book. Now, with my method, you don't necessarily need the practice book, but I actually use that for training adults when I do a handwriting training. And the rationale is this: you don't need one style of handwriting. There are times of handwriting when it's fit for purpose to do print. So in a teaching scenario, I would do things like labeling. In a print So if I'm labeling a diagram, I would probably do it in print handwriting. And then if I'm doing my very best writing, maybe for a final copy of a story, or to copy out a poem for display with some lovely artwork as well, I'd be saying, right, now we're going to do our best fully joined handwriting. Or if we're writing a thank you letter to someone, or an invitation or a Christmas letter to a relation, we're going to do our best handwriting. And then have it be known that maybe you, the adult, have got multiple styles of handwriting. What you teach in school, we're going to teach you all of this fully joined handwriting. Then we have the arguments, especially coming from America, for example. Why do we teach joined handwriting? Do we really need to? Children in secondary school don't use joined handwriting. They revert to print or a sort of a quasi-joined handwriting. So I need to give you that rationale. Now, rationale. You are in infant and primary. You need to discharge your duty to teach the children how to hold a writing implement well and comfortably for sustained writing. And you need to teach a fully joined handwriting style to give children choices and self-esteem. Now, you imagine if you come from homes that aren't particularly literate, and maybe all the adults around you are writing badly, or maybe all in capital letters or whatever, you imagine if you end up writing like the example I showed you, the final slide, and you go up to secondary school and you can hold your own. And then you have a choice. Do you want to be able to do that some of the time? You give the children a choice, and I believe that choice. Now, this came powerfully to me when I was actually doing some teacher training in a secondary school. And it was awful because as I went there, the person who'd asked me to go and do the training actually said to me, Debbie, it is rather a notorious staff. If they don't like the trainer, you know, it's not unheard of for several to walk out. And I'm thinking, what? They're allowed to walk out when you've got a visitor to do some training. So I wasn't very impressed with that. So anyway, I was talking about handwriting, and I was there. I was invited to train in the handwriting because the secondary school had an issue of really poor handwriting everywhere. So I'm explaining the importance of teacher modelling on the board, and I was building in some phonics with it as well, because don't forget, secondary teachers often aren't trained in phonics, and they need to be. We should all be trained in the complex code and the phonics skills for reading and writing. These are long-term skills, not short-term skills. Anyway, there was this chap who was so rude. He was the chemistry teacher, and he had his feet right up on a chair all the way through my talk next to me. If I was as old as I am now, I would have asked him to take his feet down, but I was a bit younger then, so perhaps not quite so brave. And he's saying to me, well, he says, I always write in capital letters. Why should I care less what my writing's like or what the children, you know, what the pupils' writing's like? And so I said, well, okay, so let's take that a bit further. Let's just say that I eat like a pig. Does it matter if I eat like a pig in front of children and don't care how they eat and how I conduct myself? And I'm thinking he was behaving like a pig, quite frankly, with his whole body demeanor and his attitude. And this issue came up on Twitter about someone complaining about Amanda Spielman, who's our Ofsted Chief Inspector, saying about children regressing over the lockdown because they weren't eating with knives and forks anymore. Now, I'm not making a value judgment on how people eat in their home, but we are also in loci parentis, and it's part of our duty to give children choices. I believe that it is fair to children to teach them how they might hold their implements competently and acceptably, because who knows what company they'll go in, rather than just eat just with their hands or holding implements any which way. It gives them a choice. So let's get to the joined handwriting. Why is my method different? First of all, it's a teaching method. It's for teaching, and not every adult has flair, and not every child has flair. So the first thing you might have noticed when we were looking at those wooden shapes is this kind of tendency. I hope this works. this. So even if you're teaching from the line, if you look around at examples, lots of children don't really think about the positioning on the line, but neither do a lot of the teachers when the teachers are not writing on joined lines anyway. So a lot of teachers tend to model on just a whiteboard or a flip chart with no writing lines. In fact, I couldn't find a flip chart with just ordinary writing lines. I've resorted to this one that's got the multiple lines, which I don't even like. So, you know, we've lost just writing lines, just plain writing lines. So part of the issue in your analysis is where are children starting that lead in join? I teach it geometrically with a straight line. And so basically teach the children about which are the joins and which are the letter shapes. But if you teach a print font in infants with the lead in join as part of the letter shape, you're no longer rationalizing a join. You've taught it as a complicated font. So the main joins can be shown in two boxes. So basically, boxes sort of half height within your writing lines. We have a diagonal join to half height, which goes from bottom left to top right. And we have a washing line or a smile, that is your top join. But we have to put an extra hook over for our curly cut letters. And with letter E, we're doing a process of having to swoop down from a top join or up from a bottom join. Now, all of this is explained at length and in detail on some free video footage at my handwriting site with lots of free resources at Debbie Hepplewhite handwriting.com. So I'm not going to do this at length here, but when I do handwriting training, I get the adults doing this style first. So they need to crack the school handwriting style before they are expected to teach the children. Now, I need to tell you an anecdote about this now. I see I'm going to run out of time, but I have done this training with the adults themselves, and on many occasions had people say, oh my goodness, look at my lovely handwriting. My handwriting has never looked this good. So a lot of people have enjoyed the fact that their handwriting improves. Now, when you do this diagonal to half height lead-in join, you're not asking for flair. So it really is literally this. So I'm going to do this quickly because I'm running out of time. You're welcome to stay if you're still interested. If you go, I completely understand. It's your evening. Thank you for attending. So down to half height, hook over, back and round. Diagonal to half height, hook over, back and round, catch the hook, straight up and down. Now that hook over is so important for those curly cut letters. Go and look at how people write, adults and children. They do not do a hook over to start at the correct starting position for all of those curly cut letters. The next thing is look at the letters with descenders. They're all over the place. So I do a straight line down and a very thin loop. So watch what that looks like. Diagonal to half height, hook over, back and round, catch the hook, straight down, thin loop, and off you go, ready to do the next one. So that thin loop is what can make it really very neat because you're containing in it. It's not wild, it's not woolly. Now, before people go, I want you to think about this. When you are training these older children, some of them may be handwriting already and doing quite a good job. And teachers argue that why should those children have to do this new handwriting style? Because you cannot start picking children out to not do it. Where do you draw the line? Who's not quite neat enough? Who's not quite got it? You have to do it as a collective. You are a class teacher. You're in it together. You're learning it with them. Now, I have loads of examples of where teachers have refused to do that. And you can go back years later and see which teachers have not really decided to do that because those children's handwriting does not have the flair, not well joined. But if you explain to children that you're all doing it and it's okay to have your personal style, but this is your classic style and it's your duty to teach them you're all in it together. So in terms of the rationale of who to do it with, you need all to do it. Now, obviously, we've run out of time for the hour, which we knew we would, but it was more important to me, actually, to really say, stop doing the lead-in join for print for those littlies and spread the word. As Anne said at the beginning, that some of you have missed, we are going to go up to be able to have 1,000 people at a time on these webinars so that we aren't turning anyone away. Spread the word that these are different webinars that are going to challenge a lot of the orthodoxy, a lot of the trends, and a lot of the fads. If some of you have got consultancy capacity, you are very influential. So I want you, if you agree with what we're saying, because Anne and Abby and I were all on the same page with this, if you agree with that, please go into schools and fearlessly get the conversations going. If you are one of the people who spread that and you are now thinking differently, don't be afraid to say you've reconsidered, you've had some food for thought and you think it was maybe an error to do that. Then what Anne and Abby and I want is for you to get back to us. We need to become a culture of people who are working collaboratively, people like the three of us with vast experiences in the field of literacy and foundational literacy. And I hope that what I did at the beginning of the talk with my anecdote about the little special needs boy is, do not think that where children have got to is all they are capable of, because I am telling you, you can make an instant difference when you change your technique. You go in there with those high expectations, but high expectations won't get the children there. You have to teach them every last little step, sweat the small stuff, show them, model in their handwriting books, change your handwriting if necessary, raise your game, reflect on yourself. And I am telling you, you could make a massive difference to these children. So if you're going to leave us now, thank you so much. If you're going to hang around, we'll hang around with you, and we'll, if anyone wants to ask a question, Anne can unmute you, or you can unmute yourself, or however the thing works, and we'll talk about it. Anne, Abby, any questions or something?
Let me see if there's questions. Just a lot of people giving really positive feedback. Oh, here's a question: how can you assess readiness for joining? We know that one, don't we?
Right. Okay. Very important. And I wanted to talk about mindset. So anyone who's still here, all right. Year 2, just start the whole class. They're ready. When you've taught them the joins as separate letters. Oh, I need to do this. Right. Anybody who's left, let me tell you my tip. I need to get this in. So if you're there,
about 62 here. So you.
Oh God, great. Right. Say that we've gone through all of the curlicle letters. Even then, in that lesson, say, right, children, I want you now to think about the joins, think about the letter shapes, and all are together. I want you to call out to me how to do the writing. So then I, the teacher, have got a flip chart or a whiteboard with my lines on, and I just stand there waiting for them. And then they realize, oh, pencil on the line. Yep. So you go to put your pencil on the line. Then what, Abby? Model.
Sorry.
So don't say do dog. Talk me through dog as if you're the child.
As if I'm the child?
Yes, you're telling me, the teacher, how to do it.
How to what? How to do the... How to
write dog. How to write dog.
With joins, or how to spell it?
Yes, with joins.
With joins. Start on the line, diagonal up.
Half height.
Yes, half height. Hook over. All the way back round. I don't know your patter off by heart.
Okay, let me do that now. I was a bit of a low ball there. Right, catch the hook.
Catch the hook, that's it.
Straight up, straight down, diagonal line to half height, hook over, back and round, catch the hook, washing line join, hook over, back and round, catch the hook, straight down, thin loop. Now, this is so powerful and it's so quick. I might have just done with your older children, I might have just done practice, separate, C, you know, with the sounds. And then I put the ball in their court and I just make them think the joins and call them out to me. Then I'll say, right, we're going to have a girl's turn, boy's turn, because it's often the girls that call out more. And you think of another word, let's say dad, a word consisting of all the letters you've introduced. And you just stay there and you just do exactly what they say. And you are making them engage with what to do. Now, that is the most powerful tool that you have got, technique. It's a fantastic technique. It's about where you get children to talk back to you what you want them to do. And if you build that into your technique for all your subjects, whatever it is, tell them, then they tell you back. You know they're listening. They know you're going to ask them to tell you. So then you get the boys to do it. Then they can do it. So then you say, right, I want you to write the word this or the word that, and they write. And what you say is, this in my style. It's not fast. It's like drawing. So they're not to do it fast. You as adults, when you practice, don't do it fast. Do it painfully slow. And you talk about what the patter is. The patter is on my handwriting site. And I'm sorry I've run out of time, but perhaps we need to do a longer one on another occasion. And so you slowly talk your way through it. Imagine you're the child and you're thinking what to do. Now, what you have done is you have distinguished between, here is the letter shape, here is the join, this is how we join this letter to this letter and this letter to this letter. And it's all there on that original video. And when you look at the front cover of my handwriting practice book, there are some little bullet points at the bottom, and that's all there is. And you can teach this joint handwriting style incredibly quickly. With your older children, you might be able to do it in a couple of lessons, or you could take all morning. Let's have a morning out to do this new handwriting style. And you will be amazed at what they can do when you've properly taught it and intellectualized it with them. With your youngest year 2 children or your P3 children, you might spend some mornings just doing the single letters and then say, right, now you're going to talk me through it. Then you pick a day from which you say, right, now you're going to copyright your favorite poem or a verse from your favorite poem or something out of your phonics program. So those of you that do my phonics programs, you know that you've got cumulative decodable text there in print. They can copyright it so they don't have to think what they're writing and they have to join it. And if you get resistance, it's very easy to just say, oh, let me help you with that. We'll stay in at playtime and I'll help you with that. Now, either stay in at playtime and it does help that individual, or they get the message, do it now when you've got the chance, or you're going to have to waste your playtime and do it then. So you've always got a ways and means act. Now, in terms of results, I have had outstanding results with classfuls of children that I've never met before in my life of any age. And I've taught them this in a protracted hand lesson to model to the teachers. Another thing I've done is taken children who have been led to believe they need some complicated finger grip thing, but it's actually not a very good one, maybe a clumsy one, that they don't really get a grip because there are better ones and worse ones. They've been led to believe they must have a slanty thing, which is not actually as easy as actually working down the way. And I've said, oh, let's just try it with this froggy legs. Let's just try it this way. And they can do it. You know, very often we make children invalided. because we ourselves have had wrong advice and we have not had that experience. So it really is, keep it simple, teach these small steps, take responsibility, think what's fit for purpose, get them excited about a new style that you are learning with them, improve your own handwriting. Now, in my year 1, year 2 class, which had for several years, which gave me really deep learning, that contributed to me knowing more about phonics and what we needed. I had one little boy, and he really was genuinely dyspraxic, and his writing was really quite large and not very good. And then one day we were doing this handwriting practice. He came up to me and he said, "Look, Mrs. Hepplewhite," and he handed me his handwriting book, and there was this immaculate, small, neat, not small, but proper ordinary sized handwriting, all fully joined, and it was extraordinary. So this is a dyspraxic child who otherwise was left with this big scrawly writing, but he took on board every single thing I was teaching, and he decided he wanted some of that for himself, and he did it. So you will not persuade me ever that children can't do these things until after you have become the best teacher you can be, and they can't do these things. And in the reading debate, in the foundational literacy debate, we are nowhere near where we need to be. If you are a letters and sounds school or an active literacy school, you're not there yet. And so in Scotland, we're working with Anne and colleagues to say, what does a good program look like? Same going on in Wales. We have a long way to go. And Anne and Abby and I need you to support us to grow that community of being better at what we do. Any more questions, Abby?
We were just having a little discuss in the chat about your personal style, that when you do the lowercase q, you don't do like a sharp backwards tail, you do like a little hoop. And also for your descenders, you do like a very, very tight, small hoop. And actually, yes. I was saying that might get shot by you, but I actually don't, because I just for me, everything else that you do, I absolutely stick to, but I just can't cope with that weird cue and that tiny hoop. And I just make mine a little bit bigger, but it's a rationalized, consistent decision.
I have no problem with that at all. I have absolutely no problem with that at all. And, that in my work generally, people might find the odd thing that they don't like or something. And I say, okay, take it in the scale of things. If you want to modify that little bit or put your stamp on it or whatever, do that. So we're in the business of the broad principles of where we're going wrong with that. But so there is room for that. I'm not being dogmatic about you must do this handwriting style. I'm saying this has worked and these are things to reflect on. Do you want this kind of thing going on, or do you want that sort of more neat thing? This is a spacer. Those diagonal lines to half height are beautiful diagonal spaces, and they can soften when children get competent and as they get more fluent. But if you go now and look at children's handwriting, where are the spaces? They go up the eyes and the ends like this. So where is the spacer? There is no spacer there. So part of the join and part of the development of the style is for the spacers. And so I don't have a problem with that, but I have a problem with the absolute illogicality of what we're teaching our 4 to 5-year-olds at the moment. We have to stop this trend. We have to stop this fad. And I don't mind if you don't agree, come back to me and tell me you don't agree, and let's sort of have that discussion. But I do mind that the whole blooming country, if not the world, is going down these ridiculous routes, and they are no more than fads and not good for our children.
Yeah. Do you have a strong opinion about hooped style? When you hoop on the top of a H and you hoop around the F the other way?
No, not if people decide to do that. I have a problem with Fs which are looking like this though. I can't even do them. What do they do? Like something like that.
You end up looking like that.
Yes, there was one on my first slide when it's got no straight back. Somewhere along the line, an F really needs a bit of a straight back. And so some people might do this. I do this, right? And it doesn't matter if you decide that you, as a school, are going to go with that, as long as you've got consistency and it works for your children. And as long as you don't think that you need to teach handwriting, which is virtually copywriting with no intellectualizing of joins, and you do lesson after lesson once a week, and then when the children go to do their actual handwriting in their books, they're not doing it. Handwriting does not need to take months and years. I can do it in days or a week. I can do it in a day. I can do it a day. With older children, I can do it in a day, the vast majority of them. And with younger children, I might take a fortnight of doing that morning practice to really get them doing needs. And they love it. Stick some music on. Show them and stick some music on. And have them, don't do letter strings. Don't do this. Right? That's raw. That's the C. That's not helpful. That is not how we write. We
because
don't write.
Don't go on for that long.
You know, so really, I do teach the letters separately, but also, you know, say what's the letter, what's the join, what do we do after these letters, O, R, V, W, X, that top join, we need to rationalize it. Then check out teachers' labeling that's done with these software programs, where they're writing in separate letters with their lead-in join. It's terrible. It's chronic. We are labeling up our infant classrooms with totally non-rationalized letters and joins. It just has to stop. We need to stop it as quickly as possible. That's what I think anyway.
Quick question about capital letters. Is there any particular guidance on, I think it's the order of teaching them, like when you would teach them, and checking about having patter for capital letters, which I don't think you have, but I think could be very useful.
Yes, funny enough, I got asked about that recently, and I did promise someone that I would write some patter for capital letters. So in the meantime, just say something sensible, but make sure you're doing these top bits before the bottom bits. So I might do that eventually, but bear in mind, I'm incredibly busy and I'm not making progress with the things that I need to make progress with myself. And I'm doing all these Zooms and webinars nowadays. So in the meantime, just do it sensibly. Right. Anyone who knows my phonics programs know that we're introducing letter shapes, including capital letters, with the phonics and the sounds. Capital letters are the same code as their lowercase equivalents. They're not A, B, C, D, whereas lowercase is A, B, C, D. So we need to introduce capital letters and not shy away from it. Some of you who are in nursery settings or foundation stage 1 settings, we do have free material where we're introducing alphabet letters by their sounds. So linking A, B, B, C, and so on. So you can already be starting to show the alphabet letters in nursery, as well as modeling, oral segmenting, oral blending, that kind of thing. But I am not someone who shies away from letter names when learning about the alphabet, alphabetical order, and that's our bank of letter shapes. So sing a song, have a preferred alphabet song and sing that song with letter names, but never use letter names in your phonics. And if you're doing digraphs like a C and an H together as code for ch, do the sound ch. So you're not going k, you're going ch, and build in those letter combinations. One of the questions was, what do I think about introducing digraphs that are already joined? I don't prefer it, but it's down to you. So some of your phonics programs might introduce digraphs as joined. I wouldn't bother. I would just stick to all print, keep it simple. They don't have joins in reading material. This is something which has grown, which I don't particularly agree with, but I'm not going to demonize people who are following a program that does that. But if you're following a program that does that, check out whether the join is spacing the letters well enough. Think about those more geometric, sort of straightforward diagonal joins. Anything else, Abby?
Any chat about handwriting apps? Like using technology to support handwriting? You
Yes.
just don't need it, do you, really?
Yes. No, yeah, no, yeah. Oh, have you seen everybody goes, yeah, no, on the television? They go, oh, yeah, no. And I just did it because it becomes habitual. All right. I don't know. Find one that kind of is the closest thing to your handwriting style. But technology counts and we have it at our fingertips. But when you are in the classroom and you've got your teacher's whiteboard and your flip chart, don't be afraid of using them, because we're modeling the physical process that we need for children to see. And COVID has been good for teachers putting desks facing forwards. Brilliant. Even when children are tiny. Circles, semicircles, round a group is not good. Spatial awareness, when you're modeling from the board, children facing on, and that awareness of left, right. So for example, air writing in phonics is mainly just good for engagement. You could say it's helping letter formation, but it's not handwriting in its entirety. But if you are modeling air writing, never face the children, face the same way as the children. And if the children are here, if they're right-handed, putting them behind you on the right, left-handed, put them behind you on the left. Model your letter formation for your right-handers with your right hand, for your left-handers with your left hand. As sure as eggs are eggs, if you try and do it opposite the children and you write backwards, some children are capable enough to see that. You yourself sometimes get confused. When these children are tiny or dyslexic or struggling, your lesson modeling needs to be as close as humanly possible to what you want them to do. Now, that includes having your teacher's whiteboard rectangular like a page. So some teachers who are neat and organized have that, but very often when you go into an infant classroom, it's got loads of bits and pieces around the edge and you kind of model in the middle. No, set your standards high. If you want bits and pieces like things on magnets, tape off a section of your whiteboard and keep all your bits and pieces in one section, and keep your rectangular piece to always model in a very beautiful way, in an organized way, because that's what you want the children to do.
I've just added in the chat to say that I think letter join is okay. I think thinking from the point of view, if you're trying to transform a whole school, if you're trying to get all teachers on board and all classes trained up and working with, really getting into handwriting, that's quite a hard task, to really train all the teachers. So if you have something like letter join as almost like a temporary measure to get people into it and thinking about it and supported, and then you go around and support each teacher to be able to actually teach it and not rely on any technology. That would be the vision.
Yes, and I would, if you decide on a handwriting or you're going to make it policy, that you need to train the staff first and make sure you can all do it and you're all confident to do it. And that's why people like me end up doing handwriting training. So as you know, all my resources are free and I give tips freely. But if, equally, so whole schools have me there, or I can do it by Zoom to take them through the rationale. And with that handwriting practice book to get them practicing it. So it's as if they're the pupils and I'm the teacher, and I take them through that to model what I would do with actual children. And sometimes I go into classes to do it with children, but I'm not doing that anymore at the moment with COVID. And also because I'm in West Wales, so I'm a long way from everybody. But what we're trying to do is empower you, the teachers, to do it. And sometimes that's hard. It's hard to change. It's hard to challenge. It's hard to refuse. But I need some of you to refuse if you don't agree. It is okay not to agree if you can rationalize. And I want you, some teachers in Scotland now are struggling because of active literacy and authorities. I want you to think of me on your shoulder, being fearless. I am totally fearless, right? I'm totally fearless of anybody because I'm so confident and so experienced in what I'm saying. But I want to skip you younger people the decades it's taken for me to get to this position. That's the thing, because you're experimenting on real children and you're experimenting on somebody else's children. So you immediately need to think, am I as good as Debbie in the classroom? And I've gone into school after school and either taken a whole class of children I don't know, including what you think are the intervention children, or I take an intervention group, I don't know these children, and I've done a lesson through my phonics program of handwriting and shocked the teachers who knew the children. But you don't know the children's potential. And you have to challenge, are you inadvertently stopping that potential? So I meet a lot of really committed, enthusiastic phonics leads. But when they come and show me handwriting books and things like that, I'm saying, well, where's your modelled handwriting? What have you done in this book to show the correct size and formation? Why are these lines so wide apart? What size do you expect these children to write? And you know, look at your marking, your handwriting. So these are challenging thoughts, but that's the level that you need to be the best teacher you can be. And sometimes that means challenging someone who's in authority over you, but be brave, because it's the children that count, the children. Not the Ofsted inspectors, not the advisors, not the DFE, not John Swinney in Scotland. We are here for the children and wanting to be the best we can be. And literacy is the most exciting subject in the world, because when we get good at literacy, we can see children growing before our eyes, all of them, not just some of them. Now, Anne Glennie's pointed out in Scotland that the aspiration of so many in authority, oh, we'll get the 85% there. No, we'll get the 100% there. But the people in authority in Wales and in Scotland are not there. They haven't got the right experts in place. And in England, they're losing their way in many ways. And so I'm having a last push before I retire, or before the sulfur smell and the carbon monoxide finishes me off. Anything else, Abby and Nan?
I have a question, Debbie. I'm just thinking about our current situation in Scotland and the kind of arguments that are flying around just now about children being damaged by being taught things before they're ready. So on the subject of handwriting, what if someone is claiming, oh, but they're not developmentally ready, their motor skills aren't ready to be taught to handwrite?
Okay, this is a really important one. It's about mindset. And I have to say, those early years teachers get a lot of advisors coming in saying they're not ready, they're not physically ready, you need gross motor skills and so on. And a lot of it's a nonsense. Again, it's about mindset. And if you think they're not ready and you wait, they'll never be ready. Our schools are advantaged by the children who come from homes where parents are not patronizing, the children get plenty to write with and draw with, they get plenty of conversations with their family members. Our schools are enriched and advantaged by the child who present like that. But they present like that precisely because they don't have families with the mindset, oh, they're not ready yet. So things like pencil hold. I'm adamant about this, that we can start showing them even in the 3 to 4 years. Could just show them kindly, let me show you, let me help you. Can you do your froggy legs? Because if you wait while children do all sorts of other awkward things, it becomes habitual and they'll be doing it in primary 7. And so we're getting a lot of people now holding children back with wrong understanding and doing children a disservice. I have been fighting the anti-worksheet culture for the past 20 years. I fight it vociferously to this day. I have to persuade people that my phonics content, paper-based, is the most fit for purpose vehicle through which children work. And when teachers start using this with children, the children love it. They are engaged, they have their own content, they're engaged with their own learning, they can tick and circle. And everything about it, people are shown and proved wrong with what they think as adults. So we've got this going on in internationally, every country is different. For example, in Spain and on the continent, they might be teaching children fully joined handwriting from the outset, and print is in capital letters always, that type of thing. So when I've had professional discussions in Spain, because obviously Spain's quite ahead in terms of teaching the English language through phonics, like Jolly Phonics being a pioneer in Spain. And then teachers say, well, what do we do, Debbie? Because in the Spanish language, we're teaching this fully joined handwriting. And then in English, the phonics programs are this simple print. What do we do? And I say, first of all, that's down to you to decide. But secondly, why on earth are you teaching 4 to 6 year olds fully joined handwriting in Spanish? You know, get a grip to think. Don't just do something because we've always done it. And my hope is for the younger profession, many teachers of whom have not been taught good pencil grip and good handwriting themselves. So another question that's commonly raised is, would you take an older child who holds their pen badly, or I use the word grotesque. We've gone past variations of the tripod grip, and many children have grotesque pencil holes, as do the adults, quite frankly. And when they get these fingers wrapped round in all sorts of ways, they're obscuring the cone, they're obscuring their writing. Now, I used to say, oh no, they're older, we've missed the moment, we've passed it. And then I've changed my mind. And this came about when I was lesson modeling and in a year 5-6 class, and said that I would not address pencil grip because I was actually doing Phonics International, which goes through primary for spelling. And the pencil grips across the class were terrible. I couldn't stop myself. So I said, oh, stop children, eyes this way. I just want to talk to you about holding your pencils. And I said, what's very comfortable when you're doing sustained writing is what we call the tripod grip. And I start to show them what the tripod grip looks like. And then I left it because I hadn't time to major on that. Blow me down, children coming up to me in year 5-6, which is primary 6-7. Mrs. Hepplewhite, can you show me again? I really want to be able to do it like that. Some of the children wanted to do it like that, and I had given them the choice. And that's my argument for you. Make sure you teach to the best to give them the choice as they go off into secondary school. But it's more chilling than that, because when the lesson modeling was over and I'm in the corridors, young teachers and student teachers were coming to me and said, Debbie, can you show us that again? No one's ever shown us that. The adults in charge of the children wanted to know what a tripod grip was all about. My goodness, you know, this is just a little handful of years ago. And so really, it really is, know your stuff, aspire to the highest, never shut down on high aspirations for children, and how to get there with sweating the small stuff, but have high aspirations of yourself. And in modern times, challenge when those people in authority tell you something that you know is not right. Do it politely, do it professionally. If necessary, put your concerns in handwriting. Right, what time is it? Right.